Hi, folks. Pastor Mike Spalding here with my good friend and big brother.
I'm Pastor Casper, and we're here together to encourage you to keep listening to Deception Detection Radio, because we're both on this network with our individual shows.
Yes,
and
yes.
we're going to be doing some things together as well. Nudge, nudge, say no more.
Hey, folks, tune in Deception Detection Radio. Some of the best programming in Christian talk, news, encouragement, and Bible studies. God bless you.
God bless.
Eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
Welcome to Deception Detection Radio. I'm Kay.
And I'm Chad.
We pray you all had a blessed week. Tonight, we are blessed to welcome back author, researcher, and our brother in Christ, Mark Flynn. Okay, welcome back, Mark. It's wonderful to have you joining us again. It's been a while. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely wonderful. It's our pleasure to have you. I'm going to go ahead and say the opening prayer, and then we'll get started. Okay, are we all ready?
Ready.
Yes, right here.
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you again for bringing us together. We thank you for the fellowship that we're about to partake in. We thank you for bringing Mark on with us to enlighten us. And thank you for Chad being here. Lord, you're just so awesome and mighty. The brothers and sisters that you've put in our lives. And please bless everyone that's listening, opening their hearts and their ears for understanding and to hear your word, Father. And please protect all of our equipment, us and our listeners, and let nothing interfere with tonight in any way. In Jesus' holy and mighty name, I pray. Amen.
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 Yeah, so what has it been, about a year and a half since I last talked to you guys? I think it was.
It has.
Yeah, it was 2017. I remember that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, time has been really smoking by lately.
Yeah.
And changing a lot. A lot of things have been changing.
What's been going on with you, Mark?
Lately,
just take us in, and then Chad will go ahead and take over.
Oh, all right. Lately, I've been, I guess I could say, revealing some of the stuff behind a lot of the work that Stanley Kubrick has done. I don't know how well received it's getting. It's a sort of my attempt at getting into the video media. I'm getting better. Yeah, the series is called Eyes Wide Shut, Sympathy for the Devil.
So
anyway.
I take it you're breaking down him being a neo-alchemist?
Yeah, well, actually, the core meaning of what's going on in Eyes Wide Shut was it was bothering me because I didn't see anybody getting it. No one was figuring it out, and anyway, I won't go much more into that because
I'm one of those people. I was confused.
Well, it is confusing.
I knew part of what was going on, but I didn't get the whole concept.
Well, they also butchered 23 minutes out of the film as well.
Yeah, that's the rumor, and that's, I guess that is to be expected by the people that do have control over that sort of thing. But the problem is no one's going to understand that unless they have very high level, as I have been calling it, it's Red Lodge Masonic understanding. That isn't very common. But yeah, now I've been trying to limit each one of my segments down to less than 30 minutes because I realize people have a hard time listening to something that goes on an hour long or whatever. 10 minutes would be better, but You just can't do it. There's just so much information to get out. So anyhow.
Sounds interesting.
When is that going up?
It's up now. It reminds me of this conversation I had with, I just saw a video of Josh Peck, and he was talking about how all his videos on YouTube and a lot of the stuff on Facebook that he's doing just gets throttled down, gets suppressed. Whereas before it was seen by everybody. He's getting active suppression for all his stuff out there. And I'm wondering if maybe some of that's happening to the stuff I've been putting out, because I do monitor the type of traffic I get on my website and my blog and my video channel, and it just basically stopped after about a week. Like, was it that bad, guys? It used to not be that way. The internet used to be free. I can say that because I was there before. I was working on my graduate degree in computer science when it came out, basically back in '95. And it came out before that, but before it really got popular, where people were doing things on it. And it's just not the same anymore. Especially the search engine. The search engine is Google, and Google controls what people see. It used to not be like that. If anything needs to be controlled on the internet right now, it needs some type of care taken over the search engine. Like when AT&T was broken up.
Well, the main guy that created the internet, he's actually been very vocal here lately, where he's talking about taking the reins back and basically breaking up control of the internet, like you're saying, through multiple platforms. Have you seen? Yeah. Have you seen where he's been talking about that?
I know exactly. Yeah, I remember seeing that. I don't recall his name, but I do agree. People are saying, well, the people that are a part of that use the argument that free capitalism would support. Well, we can do whatever we want, right? But that's not the case that's going on right now. Their media. They have complete control over social media, right? Which didn't exist back in the time of just NBC, ABC, and paper.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that the same people are buying up all the different platforms like Facebook, Snapchat, so on.
Right.
You name it.
And their platform, their attitude is one that is not God-centric. It's Marxist or globalism-centric, and it's completely contrary to freedom. And they're actively suppressing anything they just don't like, and they're getting away with it right now.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that what is it? The InfoWars guy, Alex Jones, he's prime example. If they don't like what you're saying, they take you off every single platform in a matter of 24 hours.
They'll shut you down, and no one will know unless there's people that actually knew of you before. But here's a concept, that's been on the front of my mind lately. A lot of my brother's work is getting rediscovered because people are actually coming into understanding now who weren't even born at the time that he was doing his stuff. That's how fast time's been going by. So that's amazing to me.
Yeah, I'm always talking your brother up. In fact, one of my dear friends, Jason Garza, I was telling him all about David Flynn, the collection that they have out now that you can buy, and he didn't even tell me anything. He just went out and bought it and started reading it, and he got maybe about 30 or 40 pages in. He ended up calling me up, and he's like, I can't even wrap my head around a lot of the stuff this guy's talking about. He's like, this stuff is just so mind-blowing, I don't even know what to say. It's like, I told you, man.
Yeah, I was thinking about the type of reaction Dave got when he was doing the work from even his family members. And like people I knew in high school would get a hold of me and say things like, does Dave really believe that stuff he's writing about and talking about? Of course he does. What do you mean? Of course he does. And it was definitely groundbreaking. And, he had a hard time getting people to take him seriously back then. He really did. And it wasn't until about 2002 at the first Roswell lecture he did after Cydonia, the Secret Chronicles of Mars came out, that people actually started paying attention to what it was saying. But he was doing that work at least 5 years before with a website he and Brenda and myself were doing the website.
The Watcher website?
Yeah.
Man, and at that time, he wasn't even talking about the Roswell Mount Hermon connection, was he?
No. I'm trying to think of the sequence. So it was first very early, like 95, 94, the revelation, at least to us, that the UFO phenomenon was not as people were thinking, that it was actually an intra-dimensional, spiritual, or angelic phenomenon. And then going from there, Dave looks at ancient religions and ancient mythology and the occult and finds a lot of information to support that. And he's putting that out, and people are understanding that. And then from there, he goes to this concept that Mars somehow is involved with these entities, this interdimensional, or the spirits of the air, the principalities and powers. That was, at least at the time, very groundbreaking. And so when his book came out, we really have his wife Brenda to thank. Dave wrote it, right? And then he just left it. He printed it up and he just left it and went on to do other things. And Brenda took the manuscript and sent it to Richard Hoagland, and he loved it. He read it all in one sitting.
My goodness.
And then Steve Quayle called him, and Dave told me the story out of the blue. Steve Quayle called me. I didn't know who he was, and he said, God told me to publish your book. I've said that story a lot, and yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing. It came out sort of not unlike, it wasn't the same way that books come out now. However, Dave did go on a talking sort of campaign. So it was months after the book came out that he went to Roswell and did his first lecture there, where he met with Michael Heiser, or Dr. Heiser, and they became really good friends. Up to that point, I guess Michael was working on his PhD back then, and Dave and he would talk and argue a lot. And it seemed back then that Mike didn't really take some of the things Dave said very seriously. But after his first lecture, he definitely did. It seemed like his respect for what Dave was saying increased like tenfold.
That's pretty bold right there, because, like I said, Heiser's very respected, and for him to change his mind and to have respect for him, I mean, that says a lot. Right.
I mean, who else knows the ancient Semitic languages as well as Michael Heiser?
Exactly.
Yeah, he parses words, doesn't he?
He does.
He is exact. You're not getting anything by him.
Nah, the whole stitching thing, that still cracks me up when I think about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. What was that? Some type of challenge to stitching that he never took. What was it? A debate, I think.
Yeah, in fact, I think he's got a website called Stitching Got It Wrong, or Stitching's Wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Where he basically went through all the text and he translated it, and he's like, he just got everything wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, the big thing that Dave started talking about was the relationship of that Mars had with things that went on Earth, starting at Mount Hermon, and the idea that the ancients actually knew that Mars was a planet that was inhabited, and the small g gods came from there.
And we're definitely going to get into that, because, like I said, that plays a major role in a lot of his research, as well as your research, your book, the Labyrinth. So, I mean, that's definitely something I definitely want to touch on, because, like I said, that's major.
Right. And in my notes that I have for our talk, I noticed if there was a summary to what Dave's book, Mars, the Secret Chronicle, Cydonia, the Secret Chronicles of Mars was the beginning of chapter 15. So in other words, he took 15 chapters to make his case. And if you just go and skip right ahead to chapter 15, which I'll read some of it, it really does blow your mind. And if you have no background in a lot of different disciplines, and actually haven't read up to that point, it really seems completely just out of this world, you know? It's like, what? I mean, well, first of all, you know, if you're going to try to explain to someone about what Freemasonry is and they're an atheist, they'll just look at you like you're absolutely crazy. And I'm talking about really explaining what Freemasonry is all about, like the Red Lodge, not the, you know, oh, it's about brotherhood, you know, and it's about ritual. People like to dress up, you know, and get together and just talk and you know.
Yeah, that's the thing is our audience is pretty well up on the whole Mason, and that's one thing that I definitely, Kay knows that I will get down on the Masons real quick about what they believe, what they're into, and
oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
We have a great audience. They are so smart and have done research, and they're looking for the truth. So,
yeah,
oh yes, the truth. I'm a lover of truth, and I think anybody that loves truth has no problem with listening what people have to say. You know, it's so hard right now to go out on the internet and find truth, right? Because there's media hype, and then there's propaganda, and then there's, you know, things that people do to try to suppress things or obfuscate things that are online.
Exactly.
I mean, your time is important and valuable. You know, what video do you decide you're going to watch all the way through? There's countless ones I've started watching and thought, okay, I've seen this before, or this is ridiculous. This guy is borderline schizophrenic, or this guy actually has some merit. You know, listen to it. You know, and that really is rare to find now. And it's becoming even more rare lately.
All right, Mark, we're going to start off with your book on the Labyrinth. Let's break down how the fallen humanity is existing in a labyrinth system run by the Nakash, the Shining One.
Well, first of all, there's a couple main points in the book, or core concepts that I think are important to talk about. And the first one, the overarching one, is this concept of assigning identities to the mythological figures that I talk about. And as an example, you're familiar with the Harry Potter series.
Yes.
People try to say, you know, they understand what's going on in that. I mean, it's common to say, well, you know, they deal with witchcraft. It deals with witchcraft and alchemy. It's evil. Okay, that's a surface. You're looking at the surface of the pond, but what's really going on? Identify who the characters are, what the characters represent. And if you do that, then you understand what's being said. In mythology, this goes the same way. So in Harry Potter, for example, they have Voldemort and they have Dumbledore. Well, the way Lucifer does things is he's a narcissist and he really hates God, right? So he always makes himself look good any way he can at any time that he can, and makes God look as bad, put in bad light as he can in any one of these stories. But if people don't realize that's what's going on, they don't really get what's going on or trying to be said. Harry Potter, the name of the wizard that can't be mentioned, this Voldemort, is actually, this is my theory, God. Dumbledore is Satan. And if you look at the rest of the story, or the whole series, with that in mind, a lot of stuff makes sense. I also write about this on my blog. I think the latest one I put out there was something about Sirius Black and his relationship to the Baphomet. Okay. But anyway, so assigning identities. You definitely need to do that. Specifically going into the idea of what the labyrinth is. It's a symbol of our earth, our world, after the fall, after Eden occurred. And it's it's a complicated sort of puzzle to unravel, because you have to identify what the creature was in the center of the labyrinth. And it was called the Minotaur, or King Minos's bull. And there's a story about how the bull was born, which I won't go into. But the identity of the bull is the man God, which is Christ. Theseus is the one that goes in the labyrinth finally, using the clue or the yarn or the string to get back out in the labyrinth that was made by the skillful Daedalus, again made by a Lucifer figure. He goes in and he dispatches, he kills the Minotaur. So this idea is that Satan goes into this labyrinth that mankind is trapped in, which is our world, right? Because of the fall. And he overcomes God in some fashion and replaces that Minotaur with himself, which is this idea of Asterion, the star, the starry one, which is another word for, he likes grandiose terms to describe who he is, Lucifer does, and actually escapes, giving man freedom. This labyrinth idea is talked about a lot, and there's cultures in the ancient world that worship the labyrinth, and what was in they made coins with, on one side they'd have the Minotaur and the other side they have the star inside the labyrinth. But if people keep this idea of trying to identify first what these characters, who these characters are, then the meaning of what these mythological stories are trying to represent comes out. That being said, it's really important to have a good background in the sciences. I think it was called the quadrivium. Maybe be pronouncing that wrong. You couldn't learn about mythology unless you had a mentor, and you couldn't get a mentor unless you had worked up to the point of being worthy for someone to teach you further. This knowledge of mythology is sacred to the ancient schools, to the ancient mystery schools. And in fact, it still is sacred. Of course, not talked about. It's just something that you hear maybe in just grade school, to hear the story of maybe Narcissus or Arachnid. So I don't want to start rambling because it's fairly complex.
No, you're doing really good on that.
To where Dave was talking about Mars and how that relates to that crop circle, which is what seemed to be what I think maybe you made a post a while ago about that crop circle. Or was it someone else?
That was me. That was me.
Yep.
That
was Chad.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is no matter what, every single stinking time, that's the thing is I get sucked back into David Flynn research and I can't get out.
Well,
escape.
That crop circle especially has kind of haunted me for 16 years.
It's mind-blowing. There's no
really
explanation. Is. I mean, wow.
I can probably give you guys a little bit more insight as to what was going on. It still blows my mind when I think about it. Dave got his first book out in 2002, and that was probably in the spring, maybe a little bit earlier. And that summer, the Crop Circle came out. I actually have some information on that. Where is that? The Crab World. Okay, yeah, it's it was in August 15th that the Crop Circle came out, and that was in Crabwood, England. I have a page here. Let's see if it actually comes up. And it had this disc thing that this alien was holding, this alien-looking creature was holding. And the glyph was so large that people on the ground didn't really realize what it was. The only way you could see, that it was an alien holding a disc was by flying above it. And it had occurred that night. There was nothing there the day before, but that night it just, some people said that they saw some lights and they heard some whirring noises, and they came out and they saw this thing. It had 33 lines. If you divide the disc in half, if you want to see what I'm talking about, just type in crabwood crop circle, and there's countless pictures of it. And there was a coded message inside the disc in a spiral pattern along these 33 lines. If you just count them, right, if you bisect the circle. And it turned out to be ASCII code.
Which is computer code.
ASCII, or I'm not really sure what the acronym is exactly, but it just means the English letters and numbers up to a certain level. Now, the internet uses like ISO or UTF-8 or something like that. So you can have Japanese or Cyrillic or Greek, but this is just for English. And the message was this. It said, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing." And then there was a symbol for bell sound for the old typewriter noise. And Dave gave a lecture in 2003 about what all of that meant. And he did an analysis of how this crop circle was formed as well. And I won't get into that specifically. But what's interesting to me is that at first people said, well, this is obviously man-made because it's so cartoonish. I mean, why would, of course, other people say it's either man-made or alien-made, right? Why would aliens do something so cartoonish as making an alien head hold some type of disc and do this? But there is a real phenomenon when it comes to crop circles, and the research has been going on for many decades now, especially in wheat fields. If there's a pattern in the wheat, it's one of the real phenomena of a crop circle. The nodes will look like nodes in the wheat that are folded over will look like they've been microwaved or exploded. They're not physically just bent and broken. That's how it looks when someone's trying to imitate it, or some humans try to imitate one. This was an actual phenomenon. It was incredibly intricate and huge and made in such a short amount of time. And apparently it also was underneath some like high voltage power lines, or very near to them. The thing that's so astounding to me, though, is I was at work at the time, and Brenda, Dave's wife, sent me this picture of the thing. I mean, the afternoon it came out, because she was really into that. I think Lucy Pringle had a website out, Crop Circle Connector. Are you familiar with that, the Crop Circle Connector? I don't know if it's still around anymore.
I'm not sure of that one, but one of the people that I'm actually friends with, named Hugh Newman, he actually keeps up with a lot of that.
Yeah. Anyway, 2002 was an incredibly prolific year of crop circle making.
Mark?
Yes?
May I interrupt for a minute? I just looked up the crop circle, or Crabtree crop circles.
It's a crabwood crop circle. Crabwood, yeah. And it's an alien with sort of reptilian-looking eyes in shadow.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I typed it in wrong.
Yeah, holding a disc with these with this spiral and these.
But that's the thing, is this was obviously also kind of aimed at your brother.
Well, yeah. I was going to say his wife called, or I think she sent an email with the picture. I went to the site and she said, "Look, someone one of the aliens imitated your logo." So I had a sort of a side business when I was a graduate student, trying to help people with their computers, to sell computers, put them together. And my logo, which was made in like 95 or 6, I can't recall, was of the very same sort of looking alien holding a disc, right? And inside the disc was this integrated circuit. And I had actually made that picture while I was sitting with Brenda in Dave and Brenda's house, and I was trying to demonstrate to her how an animated GIF was created. I had this application because those just came out about the time, you know. It's like, oh, yeah, cool, you can make this animated GIF and put it on the Watcher site. In fact, there's some of those still there. And the reason I put an integrated circuit in the circle was because of the work of Philip Corso. Maybe you're familiar with him. I think he wrote The Day After Roswell. It said a lot of the information that is being used today came from the Roswell crash, like lasers and integrated circuit, gallium arsenide technology, that type of thing. Yeah, that was my motivation for doing this. And then not too long after that, this crop circle comes out, but it was just after Dave's book. I mean, months after his book came out that the crop circle showed up. And
I think
Dave's
that's so
analysis.
cool.
What's that?
I think that is so cool.
And Dave's analysis points to the idea that pi is encoded, the latitude and longitude of the Roswell crash is encoded as well. And he did a whole lecture on that. I think it's from 2003. It's a lecture where he has a big handlebar mustache. I'm sure
I've seen that one.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Wow. That seems too big for the human mind.
I know. It's, well, either it was human beings doing it or it was something else. I don't believe it was human made. So that leaves some other sort of interesting questions.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have had all that extra stuff in there, like you said, encoded into the message if it were humans doing it. I don't think it would have had that much.
What was their motivation? I mean, if you just take the message at face value, they're complaining about something. They don't like deception. Well, that, the pot calling the kettle black. They're misaligned angels, right? They're principalities and powers in the air, right? Intradimensional beings somehow allowed to do these weird things, make these weird signs. And there's somehow some type of preemptive sort of propaganda routine that they're doing. Why would they care? Well, actually, I think now that it was the fact that Dave was coming out with some really groundbreaking information. He was opening Pandora's box, so to speak, because up to that point, the secret information that is only held by the highest august Illuminati groups was available to the public, whether or not they thought it was crazy or not. It actually made a lot of sense to people later on, which kind of reminds me too, how much people seem to appreciate Dave's work now that he's gone. Because when he was around, he sure didn't know it. There's a small group of people that did appreciate it and let him know, but he had no idea how big an impact he was making out on the internet, which is huge.
I joined the game a little too late, so it's a thing.
Oh.
I came in a little late, but I'm still playing catch up, so just bear with me.
Well, and going back to the crop circle, I mean, it's so bizarre that it's talking about Roswell, and it's using ASCII code to make a message about Roswell, because in Greek they had found this. ASCII means without shadow, and the diameter of the Earth. Well, the circumference of the Earth diameter was found by Eratosthenes by going to Aswan, because at a certain time of the year, the sun shone down a well in Aswan without any shadow. That's what ASCII means. And because of that, Eratosthenes was able to measure the circumference of the Earth, because he knew at a certain distance north that the angle of the sun was different, and he measured that angle as well. Well, the thing about Aswan is it's a famous place where red granite is quarried. The ancients, the Egyptians, quarried many of their obelisks there. The Rosewell, get it?
Oh, wow.
See, now, angelic entities don't perceive time. They don't interact with time like human beings do. It seems to me that they have a different sort of latitude as far as existence in that realm. So they somehow know things before they happen, and they know the future to a certain extent. It's limited. I had an idea. I wrote it down. It's sort of left my mind, but it'll probably come back to me. But
well, let's get into Manly P. Hall for a second. He was an honorary 33rd degree Mason who received his information from Hermes, who is the god of trade, which is interesting. He's also the divine trickster. And I heard you do a breakdown on the whole thing about the coin and the coins.
Yeah, Dave talked about that too. The reason, and then these is more information about why there is a definite link between Mars and Earth. And he talks about the Phoenicians, also known before as the Sidonians, or the people from Sidon. And that location on Earth is right north of Israel.
And now explain that the whole thing about the Sidon, that was the name that the Phoenicians had for Mount Hermon. Right.
Well, this started when Dave was looking at maps of Mars, and specifically a place called Sidonia that Richard Hoagland was fixated with. And Schiaparelli is the one who named these areas on Mars. It wasn't named Sidonia by Richard Hoagland because it had a bunch of strange artifacts there. It was already named Sidonia, I think in the late 1800s, by the guy that was, I'm guessing, a high-level Mason. But getting back to Manly P. Hall, Dave wrote this, I thought, just outstanding article, I think in 2005, called An Occult Translation of the Roswell Event. Have you heard of that?
That I'm not too familiar with. Is that in one of his books, or is that?
No, that's only online. If you type that, David Flynn, space, occult translation of the Roswell event, it should come up. I've seen it in a couple places. Concerning Manly P. Hall, I'll read this. This is in this article. Dave writes, in 1928, the occult visionary Manly P. Hall wrote, "Not only were many of the founders of the United States government Masons, but they received aid from a secret and august body existing in Europe, which helped them to establish this country for a peculiar and particular purpose known only to the initiated few." Dave says, "There exists in the world today, and has existed for thousands of years, a body of enlightened humans united with what might be termed an order of the quest. It is composed of those whose intellectual and spiritual perceptions have revealed to them that civilization has a secret destiny. European mysticism was not dead at the time the United States of America was founded. The hand of the mysteries controlling the establishment of the new government for the signature of the mysteries may still be seen in the Great Seal of the United States of America. Careful analysis of the seal discloses a mass occult and Masonic symbols, chief among them the so-called American eagle, The American eagle upon the Great Seal is but a conventionalized phoenix. Manly P. Hall, The Secret Destiny of America. Dave writes, the phoenix, the last word of Hall's statement of the founding of America, is the key to the secret destiny of civilization. It explains the occult design behind the formation of the United States and the events at Roswell. These mysteries can be solved if we understand this one word. The word phoenix is a derivative of the Greek for Phoenicians, the ancient people that inhabited the east coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Though called Phoenicians, meaning redness by the Greeks, the Phoenicians referred to themselves as Sidonians. Their capital city was named after Sidon, the firstborn son of Canaan, the son of Ham. Ham was one of the original occupants of Noah's Ark and Noah's youngest son. The Sidonians were considered masters of science and magic. They claimed to possess a civilization existing for 30,000 years. Ancient historians venerated the Sidonians. Sidonian navigators were especially sought by the Egyptians, Babylonians, Persians, and Greeks. The Greek alphabet was transferred directly from the Phoenician Sidonian script and applied to the sounds of the language of the Greeks, hence the meaning of the word phonetic. The modern English alphabet is based on the ancient Phoenician Sidonian script. The majority of knowledge ascribed through the ages to the Greeks was given to them by the Sidonians. Pythagoras, and I have a lot to talk about Pythagoras, and so did Dave. Pythagoras, considered the ancient father of Freemasonry, that he was schooled in Sidonia. The first phonetic text in existence, the Old Testament, was written in Phoenician characters. The first temple of the Hebrews was built in Jerusalem by artisans from Tyre, a city that traded Phoenician capital status with Sidon. Anyway, he goes on, but the link to Mars on Earth is Phoenician or Sidonian. And
that all ties in with, like you said, the Canaanites as well as Ham.
Right, and Dave noticed a peculiar scientific name for the quince, and he realized that there was no such thing as a pear in the ancient world. But when people used to refer to the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, they would use the quince tree. They'd have a picture of the quince tree, the very yellow quince. And the scientific name for it is Pyrus Sidonia, the burning Pyrus Sidonia, the Pyrus Sidonia fruit. You know that the people that are educated who value Latin are often high-level Illuminati types. There's no one, I could say pretty confidently, that's high-level Illuminati that doesn't have a very vast and good education. Probably no Latin. Anyway, I don't want to stray too far.
Well, one other thing,
it's so easy to do, you know. My mind goes. Go ahead.
Well, one thing I also wanted to touch on, because, like I said, you know, Manly P. Hall, he said a lot. I mean, he revealed quite a bit, and like you said, that was one of the main things, like you said, that y'all touched on, was that, you know, basically he was an honorary 33rd degree Mason. He didn't go up through the steps like everybody else. He just had so much knowledge. And all the secret societies and the Masons were so enamored with how much he knew. And y'all, that was one of the things that you brought out in your book, was that he received his information through the deity Hermes.
Exactly.
Right. And that another thing that he is known for saying was that, you know, he said that when the Mason learns the mystery of the craft, the seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands.
Right. That's absolutely right. The caduceus that Hermes carries, the thing that people associate with the medicine, the staff with the two intertwined snakes looking at each other.
Yeah,
this is the caduceus.
The caduceus.
The caduceus. And what Hermes would do is, if you were blind, he'd touch your eyes and then you could see. Of course, if you could see, he may opt to make you blind by touching you with his caduceus. And I might have talked about this before, but at one of Dave's lectures where he was talking about lots of sort of red level Masonic secrets, a Mason came up to him and threatened him. What is the Mason oath about what would happen to him if he revealed any of the secrets? His neck would be cut. It goes on and on. It's gory, but Dave said to the guy, and I want to identify him because I can't actually remember his name, but he worked for NASA, right? Dave said, "I'm not a Mason." And the guy said, "Oh, right." He just assumed, I mean, no one would be able to be explaining these secrets unless they had some background in Freemasonry. And so he went up to Dave and tried to remind him of his oath, which, of course, Dave never made. He's not a Mason. And later on, when he came back down for dinner, he went back up and talked to Dave, and he's wearing his Masonic compass tie clip. And said, anytime you come to wherever he lived in Arizona, be my guest, and he was really friendly after that. And the reason for that is if you're a Mason and you realize that someone, he'd assume Hermes, touched someone and gave him this information, friend of Hermes, of course, is a friend of any Mason, at least if you're part of the Red Lodge.
Yeah, and that's very key on a lot of this stuff because, like I said, I've been doing my own digging and tying a lot of stuff in with research you've done as well as other researchers out there. And the thing about Hermeticism, it all derives from the Greek word Hermes. And like you said, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, they focused its practice of theurgy, and it inspired Wicca as well as Thelema, which everybody knows Thelema. That's Crowley and the. Mm-hmm. But you also have the three founders, William Robert Woodman, William Wynne Westcott, and Samuel Little Mathers, were all Freemasons.
Right. Roosevelt was too, and lots of the presidents have been Freemasons. In fact, the United States wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Freemason influence. And once you're sort of cognizant, your eyes are open as to you're actually starting to look around to see what kind of Freemason influence there is. When you're going around the West, especially, you can't believe the architecture that you run into.
Now, also, you are aware that Hermes is also the father of Pan, right?
Well, in mythology, a lot of the things are ambiguous, like the.
Well, it's mentioned that he's the father of Pan via the nymph Dryope in the Homeric hymn.
Right. When I say ambiguous, like when you're talking about Athena, she had a playmate or an enemy. It's not really clear. Called what was it? Some serpent that she played with, but it accidentally killed, and she wore its skin, and I think that's called the Aegeus. But in mythology, it's sometimes very difficult to get to the real bottom of like the story. There's lots of different versions a lot of the time of who came from where and whose offspring was. It's sort of that way because it sort of leaves plausible deniability, at least as far as Lucifer is concerned. But Hermes, though, this interesting thing about this Mars connection, he was the swift one, or he's related to Mercury, and the Muslims have their own version of Hermes, and he came from Mars. He actually travels back and forth between Earth and Mars, and the Romans believed that the messenger god came from Mars as well, and they had these priests they called Salai, where you get the word salamander, which means out of the fire, the red wet creatures that would like jump out of the burning logs. But these satellite priests did strange jumping, leaping dances in their red robes. Dave writes about that in his first book, Secret Chronicles of Mars. Long names for books: Cydonia, Secret Chronicles of Mars. Temple of the Center of Time I haven't touched on at all, because most of my work comes basically after Cydonia, that aspect of it, but some parts overlap. But yeah.
Because one of the interesting things that really came across was the whole thing about Benaeus, that it's named for Pan, which today we know it as Caesar Philippi. But then they say that Mount Hermon is named for Pan's father, Hermes, son of Zeus.
Right. And were you talking about Caesarea Philippi?
Yes.
Yeah, the Temple of Pan.
Yeah,
where Jesus told Peter, "You are the rock."
Exactly, right there, because that used to be known as Benaeus, which was named after Pan, and then, like I said, Mount Hermon being right there, close to it, that was named after Pan's father, Hermes, son of Zeus.
Very holy place to the Romans and the Greeks. I remember, Dave, taking Google Earth, where you could you angle down and look up at the topography there, and you go to Caesarea Philippi, and you'd look up and you'd see the snow-capped peaks of Mount Hermon. Yeah,
because that's
not a coincidence.
Yeah, well, it's overwhelming, because, like I said, let's see here. I got one part where it said known as Ninezu in the Mesopotamian pantheon, associated with the serpents and held the staff of entwined serpents, the caduceus, a symbol of the Hippocrates, father of medicine. And then Ninezu, which was the Mesopotamian name, of Hermes, who's also Thoth, who's also Anubis, also Hermanubis, as well as Mercury and Loki. Right.
That link between gods, and thanks for saying that. The thrice great one. In mythology, I actually have a graph at the end of my book that shows that a lot of the goddesses' names can be linked to every other goddess in the ancient world. You can actually see that they're the same creature. I wonder if I have that up. I should review that.
Because that also ties in with, like you said, the Michael Heiser's work, The Unseen Realm. That's one of the things that he talks about in there in Psalms 82 about the council of gods. That God takes his place among the council of gods, and his judgment rules supreme. And then he goes further on, later on, I think it's 82:7 is where he talks about these gods, we're talking lowercase g gods, that had basically become corrupted and were unjust, and he basically ruled against them. He basically laid a judgment on them, said, you shall die like men. Mm-hmm. And so, that's the thing, is a lot of people, they really don't think that, when we're talking about these mythological characters and so on, they just think they're all made up. That's the thing, is one of the things I liked about you and David is that you guys were saying, hey, these were real creatures. These were real entities, or real deities. And, they ruled through all the different cultures and different parts of the world. They were the same people. They just had different names throughout all the different cultures and different people groups.
Yeah, while you were talking, I was pulling out my book, and for example, the Egyptian goddess Hathor was known as Artacartis in the Babylonian, and Aphrodite in the Greek, and Venus in the Roman. But Venus is also known or called sometimes Diana or Luna, and she is related to Artemis, the Greek Artemis, which in turn is related to the Babylonian Ishtar. And Ishtar, it goes in this circle where you can find a link from one civilization to another, eventually linking one to any other name of the goddesses of the ancient world. Demeter, Hecate, Athena, Artemis, Aphrodite, they can all be related to each other as the same entity, which, of course, you know who I'm talking about. What entity is this?
See, that's one of the things that, like I said, I was going through doing this whole Hermes thing, and then that got me to grab Derek's book, The Great Inception. That he's got out. Of course, he's got the other one, Clash of the Titans, or the Last Clash of the Titans. But in his book, the Great Inception, I mean, he breaks it down about Bel, Zeus, Jupiter, Thor, Enlil, Set were all the same person. Well, right. That's the father of Hermes.
Yeah, they're
that's the father of Hermes. So I mean, who is this? It's like,
I mean, getting down to the base though. What I'm getting at is Hermes is Lucifer. What are these female gods? They're all the fallen Eve, but as far as in the eyes of Lucifer, right? The fallen Eve through the eyes of Lucifer, right? Because the civilizations that worshipped Lucifer directly also worshipped Eve, as if she had something to do with their situation. And in fact, she did, right? But it's the illuminated worship of the woman, right? And it goes on to this day. Stanley Kubrick is doing the same sort of recapitulation of the Lucifer Eve story, the garden story in Eyes Wide Shut, over and over and over again in every scene. But people aren't getting it. Yeah, so it's the Eve Lucifer cult. Basically, you can take those two characters and put them into many mythological characters.
Yeah, and another thing that Derek pointed out in that book, The Great Inception, he wrote that one could argue that Bel was even more of a villain in the Bible than Satan. Satan, who is only mentioned in 14 Old Testament verses, when Bel, on the other hand, appears 106 times in 88 verses, including personal and place names like Bel-Zephon.
Yeah, I'm sort of I still sort of maintain that a lot of these gods are just aspects of Lucifer, even though they're called something else. Like Apollo, the Shining One, which means the same thing as Lucifer, right? Does very Lucifer-like things, even though people don't realize it. Like one that stands out in my head right now is when he goes to Delphi and kills Python. Have you heard of the Oracle of Delphi?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Genesis 3:14, God curses Lucifer. Basically, he says what his plight is because of what he did, starting at 3.14. And people call that the pi verse, the circular idea. And so what the Illuminated say, and they take this interpretation of this idea, and Satan, I'm sure, feels this way, that he was unjustly punished, right? He was brought low from his great stature, his shining God, low g, little g idea, and made to be this loathsome creature that everyone hated. And what he's going to do in the future is imitate what Christ did on earth, right? But in a satanic way. He's actually going to manifest on earth as the bright, shining anti-savior, or the Antichrist, people call. I don't like to use that word too much because it scares people away. But when Apollo goes to Delphi, he kills Python. What is he doing? He's actually killing off his old self, the snake that controls the oracle. Is going to be killed by the same entity, but and be like the phoenix. He's going to arise as the shining man, killing himself off. The same exact concept is displayed in the United Nations. This big mural, they have the same thing going on. They have this serpent killing itself, and above it, this phoenix. And above the phoenix, they have, if you're not really sure what it is, you have this tree, looks like the tree in the Garden of Eden, and this little pan-like creature inside of it handing out the golden fruit to people around. Are you familiar with that picture that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen it in one of the other videos that you put up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually very, because Josh Peck did the audio part where he put up the mural. It's like a 7-minute clip or whatever and stuff. But yeah, I've seen that.
Is it like the serpent that's swallowing itself? Is that what you mean by killing itself?
Oh, no. The serpent swallowing itself is a representation of the cycle of the aeons. They've talked about that a lot. Also called Leviathan. But what I'm talking about is in an image. And give me a second here. I can find exactly a site. If you go to my site, my website is called SeriousTwins.com.
And you've also got another one called mark-flynn.com, right?
No, I don't. You
got rid of it. Okay.
Gone.
Well, make me a liar then. Go right ahead.
Oh, no. Unfortunately, I didn't get transferred to. I don't have anything out there actually doing any transfer to SeriousTwins.com. But yeah, SeriousTwins.com. And if you click on Discover Meaning, that's where I have all my latest writing. But eventually I can get to the post that has the image, and I can give you more information about that.
Did you ask your question,
Council of the United Nations. So if you type in Council,
but Sirius, SERIOUS TWINS
Twins, SIRIUS Twins.
Oh, okay, that's the difference.
Yeah, like the star.
Yeah.
Which is pertinent. I have all these paths to go on, and I'm like trying to back up to something where people can follow, because I say Sirius and I'm thinking, oh, okay, Rome, Romulus and Remus, and another concept in my book is symbols of the Illuminati that refer to their shining god.
Another thing I wanted to touch on real quick before I lose my train of thought, when I brought up the whole thing about Bel, Zeus, Jupiter, Thor, Enlil, and Set, one of the things that I found rather odd was because Joseph Smith was a Mason, and he was also part of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and there was someone who was seriously fascinated by him and took great interest, and that was none other than Aleister Crowley. But one of the things that was even crazier was when I found about the whole thing about the Jupiter amulet that he wore around his neck that he was wearing whenever they killed him. The mob killed him.
The Jupiter talisman?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. If you got something, go for it. Jump.
Oh, no, I don't. Not specifically about Joseph Smith.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I found that rather odd because, everybody knows that Aleister Crowley, about him being part of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but most people aren't aware that Joseph Smith was as well. That's why, like I said, Aleister Crowley was so fascinated by him. And another thing, also, the whole thing about Hermes being the son of Zeus, and that he was the youngest of the Pleiades, Maya. That was another one that really jumped at me because, Job 9:9, and there's also Amos 5:8. They both mention Orion and Pleiades in the Bible, which is a cluster of stars in the Taurus constellation. But Amos 5:8, it says, "He who made the Pleiades and Orion, who turns midnight into dawn and darkens the day into night, who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out over the face of the land, the Lord is his name." And then the other verse, which is Job 9:9, it says, "He is the maker of the Bear and Orion, the Pleiades and the constellations of the south." So that was also fascinating, about the whole thing about, Pleiades and Orion. And like I said, that ties in with, again, this Hermes character who's the son of Zeus. And, his mother was the youngest of the Pleiades, which is also known as the Seven Sisters, the Maya.
Yeah, I do talk about Hermes a lot in my book, and definitely towards the end. And I talk about the thrice great one and why he's called thrice great. And to get off mythology a little bit, because I find it confusing or a very, very difficult subject to just sort of reference lesson or sort of casually. People just don't get what I'm talking about. I can talk about things that are fairly concrete. I notice we've talked like an hour, or I have talked mostly for about an hour. But there's one thing that that's come out of a lot of the research that I haven't. It's not in any of my books, or in my book, or in any of Dave's books, and it should have been obvious to both of us, but I just realized it a while ago. And Dave used to talk about precession, and he used to talk about the fact that the Sidonians and the Phoenicians were great navigators, and they used the idea of 360 degrees for a circle or a sphere. And the idea that there's 360 degrees in any size sphere is obvious to everybody, but the thing is, on Earth, if you take 360 degrees and multiply it by how many minutes are in each degree, you get the amount of things we call nautical miles. So any size sphere has the same amount of these, but on Earth we call them nautical miles. Now I'm going back to the idea of the relationship between Mars and Earth. If you have 60 minutes on Earth in a degree, on Mars you'd have a somewhat smaller size, but you still have 60 minutes, right? But if you take 60 Earth-sized minutes and put them in one Mars degree, you can only fit, guess how many?
33?
32. 32.
I was off by one.
Why are the Masons so fixated on that number? It is because of the Mars-Earth ratio, that idea. So what I'm saying is circumference of Earth and the circumference of Mars have a ratio of 60 over 32. In fact, whatever that is in decimal, it's like 1.857. If you take that number, 1.857, and multiply it times how many days for an Earth year there are, you get very closely how many Earth days, Earth length days for a Mars year. They're related that way. And not only that, this 32 idea, this angular ratio, this angular measurement idea, and the relationship between Earth and Mars is something we use every day that we don't realize. The illuminated member of the Masonic fraternities came up with it. Have you heard of Fahrenheit?
Yes.
Fahrenheit, the Fahrenheit scale. He decided that 32 would be the number for freezing. Well, if you've taken chemistry and physics, you might have heard of this idea of the triple point of water. You familiar with that?
No.
It's a place. It's a point in water where it's a temperature and pressure where water can exist as a gas, a solid, and a liquid simultaneously and indefinitely. It's a scientific term called the triple point. But the weird thing about the triple point is it needs an atmospheric pressure that's 165 times less than what we have on Earth. You know where there is an atmosphere 165 times less than Earth? And that it actually has a temperature of freezing and actually has some water too? Mars. It's the only place in the solar system where the triple point of water exists naturally. And he definitely made sure that the transition between freezing and when water went from freezing to where water boiled was 180 degrees. I could go on, but maybe I shouldn't.
Please go on, please.
Please go on. You are just blowing our minds here.
Yes.
Have you heard of the mikvah? A ritualistic cleansing bath that the Jews do to this day, the Israelites used to do. It needed to be running water or fresh water or living water. It needed to have something going through it. Water couldn't be stagnant for it to be kosher. And it happens to have 5,760 units of volume called eggs. So the smallest unit of volume that the Hebrew scale is called an egg, and they have logs, and they go on, and they get all the way up to a mikvah, and a mikvah has 5,760 eggs in it. And a strange thing about this relationship with this 180 degrees on Mars, if you take 180 and multiply it times 32, that number in the Fahrenheit scale, that ratio, that relationship between Earth and Mars, you get the mikvah number, 5,760. It's sort of hard to throw these things out and have people conceptualize or see what I'm saying, but it's much easier to have the images. And if you go to my website, I have really now, after the last, 4 years, countless articles on this type of thing. Did you know money, gold, and weapons are also weighed with this same weird mikvah number? Have you heard of the Troy pound? Well,
no.
5,760 Troy grains makes a Troy pound. So you have this strange idea of weapons, which are definitely related to the god of war or Mars, and this number. And in fact, if you take the diameter of the Earth and subtract the diameter of the Moon, guess what? You still get the same number, 5,760. There's a relationship going on between Earth and Mars and the Moon. And, in fact, our measurement system itself is made on the relationships between these bodies in our solar system.
Yeah, and another thing, when I listened to the interview that you did with Gons and Basil on Canary Cry, you had mentioned that there was another place besides Cydonia out there in Mars, that there was another place out in the universe, or our galaxy, that basically were these deities, these fallen angels or angels habitated at one point. I can't remember the name of it. You know what I'm talking about?
I absolutely do. Here, let me read this little bit from Dave's book. It's chapter 15. It says, civilizations of angels, the gods, lived in the solar system. In the aeons before Adam, the center of the angelic kingdom was on a large planet near Mars, the fifth from the sun. When the planet Astera/Krypton/Rahab exploded, the blast not only destroyed the angelic civilizations on Mars, but also decimated life on planet Earth. At some point after this period of solar system-wide chaos, as Genesis discloses, God made Adam as a distinct being, keeping him separate and secluded from the rest of the world in the Garden of Eden. Adam was made from the very dirt of the earth, and Adam's descendants would retain that connection to the planet, looking forward to a future time when God himself would dwell on earth among them. So yeah, the planet's name was Rahab. Dave goes into this only in chapter 15. He just sort of lays it out, right there for the reader.
So he says Rahab.
It takes a long to get to that point. I won't read more.
He said Rahab was Krypton?
Yes. Well, other names for Astera, Krypton. Yeah, Krypton. And it exploded. There's a scripture he puts here. Let me see. The word Rahab itself, by the way, is composed of letters Resh, He, and Beth. Resh is head or chief or prince. He, word, revelation, and spirit. Beth, house or temple. The head house. What do the angels do? They say the word of God. They are messengers. If an angel is misaligned from God, what use does he have? Anyway, that would make sense. When Rahab fell, after the fall of Lucifer, it was destroyed. That's what Dave was saying.
Wow.
Job 26:12. He divideth the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smiteth Rahab. Ezekiel 28. You are the united cherub that covers, and I put you into the holy height of God. Let's see. David writes after that, Satan, the greatest of God's angels, sealed the measure of perfection and beauty of all creation, choosing to display himself as an angel of light. The cherub who became Satan was a created being made to reflect the word of God, the power that had created the material universe and all the intelligent beings in it. Sorry, this text is extremely small. I have to squint to read it. In Job 15:15, Job 15:15 describes God's assessment of the angels and their dwelling places after they rebelled. Behold, he puts no trust in his holy ones, and the heavens are not clean in his eyes. Ezekiel 28:18, God brought a fire from the midst of the fifth terrestrial planet. Ezekiel 28:18, thou hast defiled the sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquities, by the iniquity of thy traffic. Therefore, I will bring forth a fire from the midst of thee. It shall devour thee, and I will bring thee to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all of them that behold thee. That's Ezekiel 28:18.
And Mark, in Matthew 1:15, Rahab is also known as the harlot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Job 9:13. God will not withdraw his anger. God will not withdraw his anger. The helpers of Rahab crouch under him.
Yeah. That's interesting, too.
So, this idea that angelic civilizations existed somehow in a physical form or some unknown form, but in a very ancient time, is really, really radical. And this came out literally months before that crop circle came out. I don't know, you could consider it a warning. Dave talked a lot about 2012 as being significant. Well, for him it was. I laugh, sort of. That was the last year that he experienced on this earth. But I don't know exactly what the true meaning of that crop circle was, but it was sort of ominous.
Do you ever think, too, that whoever put it there could have been almost like an equivalent to a sense of humor, of saying, look, we know what you're thinking, we know what you're doing, you can't put it past us?
Well, yes. Also, sort of, yeah, we received the message. We received the message. We're watching you. Mm-hmm. Because, what were these angels called? The Watchers. Dave's website was called Watch Your Website. And the Watchers had the hybrid human angelic offspring, and those were called the Nephilim. Genesis 6. That's another thing. That's another sort of catalyst to a lot of what Dave did. He was a Christian, and he's reading, things like Genesis 6 and thinking, well, what the heck does this mean? What are these giants? Why doesn't anybody talk about it?
Did you know that Joseph Smith, as well as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, that there was a term that they used called the Nephites?
Yeah, that's right. Didn't the Nephites inhabit the Americas?
Mm-hmm. They were trying. That was the thing about and that's another thing that the Mormons really don't like discussing or talking about, was that originally the Nephites, I believe, that were the Caucasians, and I forgot the name of the dark skinned ones that they said were the dark and unholy or something. Oh,
I don't recall, but for some reason, there is a sort of weird idiosyncrasy in Mormonism. They refer to a thing called the Deseret. Have you heard of that?
That's not ringing a bell.
Deseret. The Deseret state, and what Mormons think it is a beehive. But it's Egyptian, and it's actually spelled more like Deshret. And that was the definition of the red crown that the goddess Neth wore. Neth, the weaver god. Which is also interesting, though, because the name, the actual crown that she wore seems to have this strange sort of thing looking like a bee proboscis coming out of it. The bee gods. And there is actually associations with some of the old goddesses that their priestesses were called bees. And I talk about this a lot in my book. This all goes back to the golden mean and this idea of Parthenogenesis. Almost forgot how to say it myself. Parthenogenesis. Have you heard of that term? It means being able to reproduce at one's own will. You can make something from just your will. You don't need a partner. Parthenogenesis. And in fact, bees can do that. If a queen bee uses the drone's fertilization, then she makes female bees, worker bees. If she forgoes the sperm from the drone bee, then she makes another drone. So if you look at the genealogy of bees, it actually follows the Fibonacci sequence, if you're familiar with it.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, and I won't talk about that on... Yeah, it's bad enough to have like a demonstration on a whiteboard.
It's basically the rectangle with the circle that's going out with the number sequence.
You've seen the golden triangle. You've seen that like a seashell, like a I'm trying to think, a conch shell.
A conch shell.
Yeah, the conch shell.
Does that by its volume increases by the golden mean. It follows a lot of natural phenomenon follow the golden mean.
Oh, I found the page earlier that I was talking about the Nephite, which was what Joseph Smith basically called him, but it actually derived from the word neophyte, which was the secret Masons terminology. But the other one that I was trying to think of was the Lamanite.
Oh yeah, the Lamanites. Yeah, I always think carpenters. They're putting down they're putting down lots of flooring that day. They're called Lamanites.
But that's what Joseph Smith and the early Mormons, they believed that the Lamanites were the dark-skinned evil people who represented Satan on earth. And like I said, they quickly took. Yeah.
There's a bunch of spirits out there waiting to get bodies, and there was a war in heaven, and the ones that got darker bodies or get darker skinned bodies are the ones that didn't fight as valiantly in the spiritual heavenly war that happened sometime in our past. I think that's what the story is behind it.
Yeah, and we've even heard there's a gentleman out there by the name of Jonathan Kleck. You probably heard of him. I've heard him basically say that we as humanity are basically fallen angels, or not actually fallen angels. We're part of the fallen angels, but that we the ones who basically towed the line and didn't really pick a side. And he said that was like part of our thing, was that we had to come down here in flesh form, and we were given a chance to accept Jesus and accept his gift of salvation, and then we can be redeemed. And I'm just like, yeah, well, I mean, if you know Jonathan Kleck and you've heard him, I mean, that's the thing. This guy has said that he basically drank the blood of, was it Gabriel, the archangel, in an alleyway like a vampire, and just started going. I was like, oh my goodness, please stop. Just stop.
Hey, Mark, I've got something I want to run by you, and you and Chad and our listeners may think that I'm crazy, but here I go. Going back to the crop circle and the fact that computers, I mean, we have these things in outer space that are playing recordings to try to make contact with alien life. I believe aliens are demons, But let's just say that I'm wrong, which is highly possible. What if when you guys started getting into all of this and the numbers and everything with computers taps in to the binary system, what happened if you and David tapped into the language of alien life? And that was their way of saying that they understand and have received the message.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was a language that Dave sort of hit upon, but I definitely think it was the message finally was getting out. And they were saying that we realize that you have something that humanity hasn't had for a very, very long time. Up until that point, I don't think anybody had been talking about what was in Cydonia, the Secret Chronicles of Mars. Although it's kind of interesting to think that there has always been a group of very elect people, men, who have had this body of knowledge. And I mean, you're talking about knowledge like, do you know there are cities on Mars? And that we imitate how these cities were put down on Earth. We have analogs on Earth. Washington, D.C., for example, has analogs of Cydonia. And so does the area in England where you have Silbury Hill and Avery Circle, Stonehenge. There are analogs there. They know this. They know these type of things. They know, for example, this is like a very strange thing I just realized. And it goes along this idea that our measurement system, our angular measurement system, our length, and our time measurement system were made because the way the Earth was put here in our solar system, because of its mass. As if God, it wasn't haphazard or a coincidence that we're here the way we are. He purposely put us here in the way we are so that our day would be the way it is and our temperature would be the way it is. What I'm referring to is this idea that the apex of the Great Pyramid, Giza, happens to be 29.979468 degrees north. You know what the speed of light in meters is? Look it up. This came out a while ago, sort of viral, and it was the speed of light in meters is 29.9792,458, or 299,792,458 meters per second. Well, what people said was the ancient Egyptians didn't know anything about the meter. And, well, I would agree. But this is the very strange thing about the meter and the speed of light. Because if you go and look to see what is the definition of the meter, it's like on Wikipedia, they'll say, well, the meter can be defined by how far a light beam goes in 1 second. And if you go look at speed of light, they say, well, the speed of light can be defined how many meters go, it's circular. It's like saying Brawndo has what plants crave. Have you heard of
He's quoting from Idiocracy.
Oh.
The circular thing. It's like, well, one always defines the other, but you'd never know really what anybody's talking about. This is the thing. On Earth, there's this phenomenon called the pendulum. I'm sure everybody knows what it is. If you have a grandfather clock, there's a pendulum in it. And the equation for how the motion occurs is called it's a simple harmonic motion. But an interesting thing about it is the mass at the end of the swinging arm or the string when you have a pendulum, it doesn't matter. It can be a bowling ball or a marble. It will go at the same rate. The only thing that affects its rate is the gravitational constant or the acceleration of gravity where you have the pendulum and the length of the string. So if you make the string short, in our gravitational field, the pendulum goes more quickly. Normal grandfather clock is using a 2-second pendulum. And if you look at the length in meters required for a pendulum to have a period of 2 seconds, by that I mean it goes to, let's say, starts up at the right and then goes all the way to the left and all the way back. That's one complete period, and it takes 2 seconds. So 1 second each way. It's called a 2-second clock. And if you look at what is required for that to occur, exactly at 2 seconds, the length of the pendulum is less than 2 meters. Sorry, is less than 1 meter. I mean, the reason I'm not saying this well is because I'm not looking at the equation here. Let me look it up. No, I have it. So it's not quite 1. It's 0.9936 of 1 meter to have a 2-second pendulum. And the acceleration of gravity, the average acceleration of gravity is 9.806 meters per second squared. And this is a weird thing, though. If you want to increase the length in this equation, you have to also increase the acceleration of gravity. And I won't talk about the equation. It's just a ratio that has to be maintained. In order to get a 1, gravity has to go in this system to exactly pi squared. So you can go to my site and see how I get to this point. But the idea is there is a universal equation, just like the concept of pi. This equation works any place in the whole universe, and all it's saying is simple harmonic motion works in this fashion, and for some length, and it's in some gravitational field, it will move at this speed for 1 period. And we're really close to actually having gravity strong enough so it would just take exactly the length that we say is 1 meter. But it isn't. It's a little bit weaker. If we increase it by just a small fraction of a percent, then a meter would work. And that happens to make that gravitational constant pi squared. It fits perfectly. In other words, our meter is just small enough so it works on Earth only so that the angular distance to the apex of the Great Pyramid, that latitude from the equator, equals exactly in meters the speed of light for 1 second. I don't know if I told that as succinctly as people really need to hear it. They need sort of visual aids. But this whole idea just has blown my mind. And I can't believe people don't see it. Some people get it, not very many. But what this proves to me is, number one, the pyramid was put there not by men. And there's certain possibilities, right? The pyramid was put by some type of, you could say, non-human intelligence, something greater than men with greater abilities, right? Or it was put here by men.
That's totally plausible when you get into the whole pre-Adamic thing. The whole thing about the gap theory, and that's right. Go ahead. Yeah,
I was saying, and the other idea is, okay, if it's not men who put it here, then who put it here? Angels aligned with God or misaligned with God? I believe it was put here with angels who were aligned with God, and I think it's actually referenced in the Old Testament. I think in Ezekiel. Do you know the one I'm talking about that people say is talking about the pyramid's location?
No, if you got that though,
Oh, boy, there's so much I should have memorized. I think when you get older, you have just generalities.
It's not an age thing. Trust me. Sometimes you just have so much information crammed in there. It's like trying to recall it can be a nightmare sometimes.
It's an overload. Chuck Missler was talking about the pyramids, and I'm thinking it was from some of David's research, how the angles, there are actually, if you're in an airplane and you're looking down at the pyramids, and that's the only way that you can see it is by being in a plane, there is a bowing.
It's actually 8. It's not 4-sided, it's actually 8-sided.
Right.
But there's a bowing, though, on each side, which is different.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, is the whole about it being 8-sided, and it's only visible from above at certain times of the day when the sun hits it just right.
It's concave basically, and it's actually showing what the arc of the surface of the planet.
Well, they've also got the numerology is in there where it talks about the circumference of the Earth, as well as on top of that, I think if I remember correctly, I remember reading something about the distance to the moon, as well as also in there.
Yes, it has that encoded into it as well. It's an impossible structure, and I talk about the pyramid defining the speed of light, and it's using universal mathematical constants to do that, and the Earth is actually fits into it. And not only that, the Earth's angular measurement system was made by using the phenomenon of the Earth as it actually exists in the solar system. So what I'm saying is the ratio of how long the Earth takes to do one full cycle of precession over how many times it goes around the sun gives you a certain number, right? And Pythagoras used to really think that the pentagram inscribed in a circle was very holy. And people say, well, the reason for that is because 360 times that inside angle of the pentagram, 72, equals how many years on Earth it takes for one cycle of precession to be complete. What I'm saying is it's quite the opposite. If you don't have any units of measurement, what you do is you look at the environment that you're in and you get a ratio, which is universal. You can observe how long it takes for one cycle of precession. And this is a really salient point on Earth. What's the importance of Earth? God made it here for human beings, right? And what was the thing that caused this big whole saga to unfold? Lucifer coming down and giving
Adam and Eve falling.
The little Pyrus Sidonia fruit. And what is the shape of that thing? It's got the 5-sided internal structure. So I'm saying that symbol, that number 5, and the ratio of precession to how many years it takes for one cycle, you can actually derive a 360-degree angular measurement system from those two facts. And I wrote about that in my blog. No one likes to read my stuff. No one reads it. Talking about Google, no one sees this. I hope someone will someday get it because no one wants to talk about it. But
that's why we got you on here, so you can come on here and talk about it.
Yeah, no, and I thank you guys a lot. A lot of the time I'm not in a talkative mood. I just don't feel like it, But I've done, it's almost, it's 8:45. Wow, we started at 7. Maybe I shouldn't talk so much. Anyway, from
people buy your books and they can hear you too. I mean, read you.
Well, they gave his book away with our Hollow Earth DVD. When the Hollow Earth was a package deal, they bundled your book in with it. So that's
great. Okay,
yeah.
There's my book has done okay, and I appreciate everybody that's commented on Amazon. Really, that's great. And I'm thinking of doing another one. It's just that summertime has been just too fun to be out of doors rather than writing. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Take advantage of it here up in the north.
Well, you're up there close to Montana, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, that's why, because if I was back up there, man, I tell you what, when we came through there, we got to go up to what was it, Jackson Hole or Jackson, Wyoming. Because Steve's like, if y'all are coming in, you got to go up to Jackson. And I'm telling you right now, you need to go up there and you need to eat. And we're like, Okay, well, if he's telling us to do it, that, by golly, we're doing it. We're going there. Well, we didn't realize it was a 3.5-hour detour out of the way and a 3.5-hour detour to get back on course. But you know what? Steve said we had to go. We had to go. That was the end of
it. You make me laugh, too, because Dave used to imitate Steve. Dave Quayle.
I'll tell you what, Steve is exactly like you see him on TV and at the conferences and everything. He's just like that in person. I mean, he will crack you up. Man, when we started talking about Hillary, I can't even repeat some of the stuff he said, but he had me, Justin, and Wes literally rolling on the floor laughing.
So I haven't seen Steve for quite a while. But yeah, no, he's very distinctive, especially the way he talks. Everything. I think you did a very good Steve there just then.
Oh, thank you. Well, if you being up there close to Montana, I mean, he's just right down the road from you up there in Bozeman.
Yeah, he is. He's pretty close. 3 hours away, maybe.
Well, hey, just blow into Gen 6 and go up there and kick it with him one day. He'd be happy. I know he'd be happy to see you.
I don't know about that, actually. I see. He had me on some show, and I bombed massively. I short-circuited. There was too much in my head. I couldn't talk at all. I had to just bomb out of that. It was very bad. But he did something that was great. I mean, he kind of revived Dave's book, the Cydonia, the Secret Chronicles of Mars, and I bought a copy because I went on his site and I was like, "Oh, you're reviving it, reprinting it. That's great." And I got it, and he has no illustrations in it. All the original illustrations are gone. I thought, "Oh no, that's not good."
Are you talking about the David Flynn collection?
What's that? No, the David Flynn collection's fine. Tom Horn is the one that was behind that, but Steve is the one that originally published Cydonia, the Secret Chronicles of Mars, and so he reprinted it without any images, which I thought was not good. I haven't said anything other than my blog. Not to say anything bad about Steve. I mean, he's the reason the book's around originally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. If it got brought to his attention, I'm sure that would be something he would easily and quickly rectify because, I mean. Well,
I don't know if Steve's listening out there. I have Dave's work. I inherited from him. Dave gave me all his computers. I have the original document, Cydonia, which is untouched. It's right protected. If he needs it, I can give it to him, and they have all the original images in color. So,
well, I'll give you Steve's personal email, and you can send that on to him because I'll quickly and gladly and easily get you in touch with him.
Oh, okay. I could just probably drive up there and say I want to buy some gold from him or something. Oh, by the way, Steve.
Yeah, I brought Cydonia with me. Here you go.
Got it on a thumb drive.
Well, I finally was able to track down a copy of Cydonia because that's the thing. That book's been out of print for so long, and I mean the prices on Amazon they were astrological, and thankfully, after I got to go meet Jim when we did the Hollow Earth film, we became real good friends, and he's like, I still got a few copies of the Cydonia lying around. If you really want it. I was like, please, dear Jesus, please send me a copy of that. And he did.
Uh-huh.
So I liked it.
That's great. How long do you guys usually talk? Just as long as the person you're talking to wants to talk?
Exactly. We there's no time limit. We will go until the.
I don't want to keep you guys too late. Let's see. It's almost 9 here, so 10 o'clock for UK?
Nope, almost 11.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, she's on Eastern time. I'm on I'm on Central, and then you're on Mountain time. So.
Oh, okay. I thought one was on West or on the Pacific, and one was Central, so I was off by 2.
Nope, we're spread out all over the country.
That's right.
But
where you are anymore.
Did you have some more that you wanted to cover?
Oh no, I think I've definitely said enough.
Well, Mark,
we would love to have you back.
Yeah, you've got a platform here anytime you want to come back, and like I said, I highly encourage you to come back anytime you want because we love having you, and I know people love to hear you, as well as they David Flynn is still blowing people. Blowing their minds all the time. And like I said, I got people reaching out to me, and he still pops into my head quite frequently, as you saw. I'm posting that stuff on Facebook, but.
Well, thanks to both of you. It's very much appreciated. And
You're welcome.
It always makes me happy to hear that people are talking about Dave still. I mean, it's been almost 7 years since he left, and I miss him a lot, and a lot of people miss him a lot and talk about him. So thank you very much.
And
I still watch the videos.
Yeah.
I just can't get enough.
I just think it's amazing those are still out there, even in the shabby quality that they are, you know.
Well, I was hoping that you were going to have like a secret archive or something like that and be like, I got about 40 hours of him just talking.
Well,
be like, really? Well, you
do.
You do?
I actually do.
All right. Where do I make my check?
I got flagged on YouTube for copyright violation. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to deal with this thing.
So is this audio or are we talking video?
Video.
Okay. Well, tell me where to make the check payable to, and I will get that to you immediately.
It's just, I need to talk to. It happened before, and this is while Dave was alive. I put something that I copied. I actually filmed at one of his lectures, and I put it out there. And some guy from something media, I can't remember, flagged it right away, and YouTube took it off for copyright violation. I said, I was there. This is from my camera, guy.
Well, if that's the case, how many hours are we talking?
His whole lecture, his first one, 2000. It was 2002, and I believe I have his 2003 one. Yeah, I'll have to get them together and see. But
find out what you got there, and like I said, let's get this package together. And I want to buy a copy. I want to be the first person to purchase a copy of that. So make sure I'm on top of the list.
I'll let you know, definitely.
And who else would probably be interested in selling that? I mean, I'm sure you could sell copies yourself, but you might have Tom Horn bundle it in with one of his package deals where he can blow them out the door as well, because dang well people are going to want them.
I think it'd be good to get some of Dave's earlier lectures out in higher resolution. Some really bad copies out there right now.
Well, if you got the originals, you should definitely see about sending them to getting copies sent to Tom Horn, because Justen and Wes are up there working with him now. And Justen can work miracles as far as cleaning stuff up. And that's the thing, is that he could pull them into Adobe Premiere and actually clean them up and make them look and sound better. And then that could be something they could put out on DVD as like a set. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely pursue that. I didn't know.
Well, Mark, it has been absolutely a blessing having you on tonight, and we thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you come back
next week. Let's do it again. We'll turn this into a weekly ritual. What do you say? Come on.
Could you please let everyone know where they can purchase your books, and anything else that you've got out there, or anything of David's that you would like to see more exposure to?
Yeah, the original Watcher website I maintain on my SeriousTwins.com site. Just go to SeriousTwins.com and click on Discover Meaning, or just type meaning after SeriousTwins.com, and you'll see the links to that. It will have the original Watcher website link. All my videos are linked on my blog here. That's definitely where I put all my stuff out. I have a YouTube channel, and it's probably going to have some more things. I'm only going to do videos that I feel intellectually stimulated about or motivated to put out. I don't put anything out because I want people to click on them. There's never any advertising around it at all. I loathe that whole concept of making money on videos. Dave put his stuff out there for people to see because he wanted them to see it. He felt they should see it. And the greatest compliments he ever got was from people were, I came to Christ because of what you put out there. I would never be where I am today unless I'd seen what you put out there, right? Because that is what you want. That's what I want. So anyway,
amen.
That website is SeriousTwins.com, and I'm sure you'll get the meaning. There's a lot of stuff here. So
let's not forget your book either, The Forbidden Secrets of the Labyrinth.
Yeah, I'm not going to be found on Amazon right now.
Well, that's the thing. They can still get the book through Tom Horn's Skywatch TV.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but thanks. I'm sure that's probably true too. So.
Yeah, it's still available. In fact, if I remember correctly, they still have the Hollow Earth bundle going with it as well. Which when I found out your book was being bundled with our DVD, I was super excited. I was like, oh yeah.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But Mark, would you like to say the closing prayer tonight for us, please?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who's given us the earth to live and our lives and redeemed us through your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you for having us get together tonight. Amen.
Amen.
And let's do it again next week.
Gonna make it a week before.
But let's make sure we get back together again. Let's not wait till 2019 to do this again. Let's just...
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I would like to talk to you. Thank you guys very much.
We love having you on. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. That's going to do it for tonight. We pray that you all have a blessed week. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light